Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Know by Year. Today I have kind of a candid personal chat, perhaps I'll call this another story time, about how failure influenced my consumerism habits. So over the course of my Know by Year, I've been thinking a lot about why I would shop and what emotions and events and feelings and things would trigger me to look for things to want and to consume and to feel a sense of accomplishment and productivity through purchase, or even just a sense of happiness or quick dopamine through adding things to my life that I didn't truly need. And I realized that over the course of my young adult life, I have failed in the number one goal of this time period. Now, I'm not trying to be obtuse here, so I will lay it all out on the table in the best way I can. When I finished high school and went to college, I was studying music, classical music, performance. I started on violin in college, got a bachelor's, and then switched to viola. When you go into music school, there is a level of awareness that you may not succeed at your dream job, at your passion of being able to perform for a full-time career, for your living. And this is, like I said, this is generally understood. It's a career path that has a lot of competition, maybe not enough opportunities for the number of people that go in, and it requires a lot of work and discipline to succeed, and determination to not give up, to find other ways to fund our living if need be, or when needs be. And keeping that dream alive and that passion is the number one thing that I could say artists as a whole are nurturing within ourselves. In navigating that dream and that passion through all of the barriers of failure, the examples of non-success, the people in our lives who may be telling us that this is not a wise choice. And the list goes on. It's not a practical thing to try to do. You're just going to have to end up getting a real job eventually. You know, these thoughts are always in the back of our mind as artists, or at least for me. And there's kind of that trope, right, where the hospitality worker, the waitress, the fast food clerk is a starving artist or somebody who has dreams that are difficult to realize. I'm not going to say impossible, even if that's part of the trope where, you know, the singer or the breakthrough actor or the writer or the poet or the dancer or performer is just waiting for their break, and in the meantime they're waiting tables. And I did wait tables for a while. So I was exactly in that position. And, you know, customers would ask what you were up to if you looked to be the age of a student perhaps. And there I was, being one of those performers, aspiring performers, talking about that with customers, people in the community. So anyway, I went to school for a performing music degree, specializing in classical performance. And I realized fairly early on, I went in on the violin, right? And a lot of violinists, I feel like, secretly have this aspiration that they might become a soloist, play concertos with orchestra, play recitals, play solo acts, essentially, and somehow get paid to do this as a classical musician. Some people do manage to achieve this dream, and they might go win a competition, they might have tours. There are violinists, you know, Ray Chen, Hilary Hahn, James Ennis, Gil Shaham, Augustin Hadelich, many others, maybe not that many others, but several others who have made this career for themselves. It's not totally impossible, but it is implausible. And chances are that if you haven't succeeded in this by the time you're about 20 years old, you may or may not ever break through in this way. It's just not statistically likely. In fact, I think studies have been done on the likelihood of winning an audition for an orchestra versus playing in the NBA, and you had more favorable chances of playing in the NBA. I don't know if I can source that, so it could just be anecdotal. Don't quote me on that. If I can source it, I'll link it down below. So anyway, I quickly realized that I would not be a soloist. I was not going to win competitions. Perhaps I didn't quickly realize that, because on reflection, I still applied for competitions on the viola until I aged out of them, which happens close to the age of 30. So I was still sending in tapes trying to get chosen to go compete at viola competitions and have a chance of becoming a more renowned solo performer. Anyway, I realized that I would have to switch my focus to getting into an orchestra. And once again, this is a path of limited success, because there are limited jobs and it's extremely competitive. Because again, like me, many people realize that this is a more likely path to success. And some people probably go into music school thinking that that's what they want to do. Their dream is to play in an orchestra. And that is now my current dream. It still is. I currently do hold a part-time position with a local symphony. I'm very lucky to even have that, and I acknowledge this. And it took a lot of work to get to this point. And actually in my current orchestra, I've auditioned for them 4 times and been kind of elevated each time that I've auditioned. So first I auditioned to be on their sub list, which is just when they need extra players. Then I auditioned for the contract level that's one more removed from mine, like more part-time than I am currently. Actually, no, then I auditioned for a title chair, which I did not win. Then I auditioned for that part-time contract and did win that. And last year I auditioned, or maybe 2 years ago now, I auditioned for a more full-time or, less part-time, more services basically. And I won that when somebody who had that contract retired. So the next step would be is if somebody who's full-time retires and I can then try again, it's not guaranteed that I'll get it, try again to get a full-time spot where I currently am. And while I'm waiting for people to perhaps age out or decide to retire, I am still taking auditions elsewhere. And now that I have a family, it's more limited because I can't just audition everywhere and plan to rent an apartment and just live a single life. Doesn't really matter how much money I make. Now it does matter a lot more. So we have to choose our cities and the pay level very carefully, which makes it harder, to be honest, because the orchestras that pay more are much more competitive, and generally you need to have much more experience to get in. All that to say, I have not achieved my dream of winning a full-time symphony orchestra job. And I've had this dream for, at this point, a decade, maybe even a year or two more than a decade. And it's humbling to realize or to think about it in this way, where I have been working towards this for 10 years, a decade, at least. I mean, that's not counting the time put in before getting to college on my instrument. So you could say that I've been working towards this dream since the age of 4, if you factored in all of that. Even if I wasn't working towards it in an intentional way, I was building up the skills. So I've been putting my efforts towards this, and I have not been successful. And I've auditioned many, many times. I haven't been counting how many. In fact, I don't know that I want to know how many. But I've done auditions every single year, multiple, up to 4 or 5. So you could say that I've done up to 50 auditions and still not been successful. And I might have made it past the first round or even the second round at some of these auditions. It's not been total rejection, but ultimately it's still rejection. And I realized only now during this no-buy year that dealing with that constant presence of rejection in my life, being told that I'm not quite good enough to achieve my goals in whatever way. And again, the orchestral audition process is kind of grueling and kind of impersonal. So they never see you, they never talk to you. You just play from behind the screen, and they have rounds set up for every musician. So we play the same thing. And like I said, it's impersonal. They don't look at your resume until the final round if they have to. It's just based on what you present on that day. And you might play for 3 minutes and be dismissed. So that's how it works. This is a bunch of information I'm not sure you bargained on getting, but here you are. There you go. The point is, I'm a failure in a way. And I do appreciate that there are many different areas of life that I have succeeded at with flying colors, some of them being family life. And I would say at large, I have everything that I want. I have health, I have my family, I have the privilege of time and relatively stable finances these days. So I would say that I'm happy. It's not even about a general emotional state, but reflecting on it this no-buy year again, it's just the realization that that little bit of emotional roller coaster, right? Where I build up working towards trying to get this opportunity, and then I'm rejected, and then I go on to the next one and build up again, and then I'm rejected. And part of the issue is that I don't know that I've ever truly believed that I would succeed. And I'm working through that on another wavelength. In fact, I might actually make a video and try to revive my music channel, my music YouTube presence, or start it. I've never really been active, but I might try to post some videos about believing in myself and getting to that point, putting in the work and all that on that channel so that I don't muddy the waters on here. But I need to start believing that I can succeed, first of all, and I need to not let the repeated failures, or, it's not even objective. I'm not failing at life. But these kinds of emotional roller coaster failures affect my consumerism habits anymore. And that's the crux of this video. And I think this awareness is going to be the first step in not letting it affect my consumer habits in the future. So that's why I'm sharing this here. I am now aware, and mitigating it through other means where I can more readily guarantee my success. I've seen on a lot of other channels about how measuring your success in factors that you can't control is not a good idea. And one of the examples that's shared a lot is if you're trying to reach a certain milestone on YouTube or whatever, you can't really control how many subscribers you get. You can control how many videos you do and the quality of your work and how you improve in your filming and presentation. I'm not necessarily aiming for growth on YouTube, so this is not an area that I'm necessarily applying to my life, but the example in this case is indicative that I need to have goals in my musical career that are based on something that I can control. And I think what I've resolved is that I need to put more energy into what has been kind of my secret dream up to this point of my viola pop covers, which I've shared a couple of on this channel in other videos. But basically, I have this aspiration of being able to do solo viola programs, once again, be a soloist, but in a totally different way, to provide kind of background music at events or even busking on the street. Just provide people with some joy in playing music that they recognize on an instrument that they may or may not recognize. I just think that could be really fun. And what's more, I would argue that even the most overplayed pop song becomes suddenly refined and interesting when you put it on an instrument that's not the original, but also traditionally only a classical instrument. So anyway, all of that to say, I'm trying to mitigate the effects of failure on my habits of consumerism by implementing goals that I can control the success of and control the work that I put in. And I can feel that sense of achievement and accomplishment through more objective channels where it's either a case of doing the work or not doing the work. And the work is still going to be hard, but having this area where at least part of my performing life goals is in my control, I think will give me that sense of empowerment to move past the urge to pacify my emotions by turning to consumer habits. And perhaps you can think of examples in your own life where the feeling of failure or not achieving your goals might have led you to pursue habits that you didn't otherwise intend. I would love to hear your examples. And I realize that, again, my example is perhaps on the more privileged end of the scale. It's not that I've fallen into physically damaging habits like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. And for that, I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that I've had the support systems in my life thus far that make falling into those habits less likely. And again, I'm grateful that I've had a lot of support in my life and have been able to do most of the other things in my life that I've always dreamed of doing. And I acknowledge that not everybody is able to achieve even those things. So many variables are out of one's control in this journey of life. And I do appreciate everything that I have, and I am happy. So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble and a peek into the life of a musician that maybe nobody wanted, but if you're still here and you've heard it all, thank you for listening. I would love to hear some tidbits of your own journey and your own individual stories in the comments below. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next one.